Let's discuss with Mike Lyons. He's retired U.S. Army Major, and Brian Lieb is a former executive director of Iranian Americans for Liberty. Mike, I'm noticing this pattern of, the fighting starts up again on a Thursday night, Friday morning, and then they decide to start talking again on a Sunday night. But there seems to be a lot of back and forth, and so far, we don't appear to be making any progress forward. Do you see it any differently?
Yeah, I really don't. I can't tell you a time in history when both sides signed an MOU to stop fighting and then spend 3 days fighting each other and then agree they're going to meet the next day to start talking about not fighting again. I mean, the Iranian rhetoric is still very high. They still want to control the straits. That's what this is about. I'm glad at least our military response has been disproportionate. We've gone after capability that we maybe should have gotten after during Epic Fury, but the kind of targets we went for were the kind of things that the Iranians still have capability at. So, the military still remains a leverage point for the president. I'd like to see him use it a little bit more. The Iranians are trying to string this out. Again, you haven't seen any time in history where two sides are fighting each other at the same time they're claiming that they're getting along diplomatically.
Democratic Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari of Arizona, the first Iranian American lawmaker, made these remarks yesterday on MS Now regarding the Trump administration's objectives for the war in Iran. Let's watch.
When I asked in a classified briefing very early on, a few weeks in, I asked Secretary Rubio if a democratic transition in Iran is one of the objectives of the mission. He very clearly told me no. It's not part of the mission. And Donald Trump has made that clear in recent weeks, as he has said, we never cared about regime change, or there has already been regime change. Ultimately, the result for Iranian people has been horrific because you now have a younger regime.
Interesting, Brian. I mean, do you agree with that assessment that this has ultimately been horrific for the Iranian people?
I'll tell you what's been horrific for the Iranian people is the fact that this current regime has been in power for the last 47 years. They've been murdering, oppressing, censoring their own people by the truckloads. Okay, so this new regime that people, are talking about, Krisha, is nothing more than just the old regime, with some new lipstick on. This is who these people have always been.
Mike, I noted that today it was announced by Iran, but it seems like it's legit, that Qatar has agreed to release $6 billion in frozen funds to them. And it seems as if any money that goes into the regime right now isn't going to be going in there to help the Iranians, but to prop up the proxies still. Why would they do this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a lot of it just has to do with the Gulf Coast states there, and Iran is trying to leverage them against the United States. And we've got to create a better alliance between us and those countries there. The Omanis, for example, the Iranians have threatened Oman. The Strait Passage, where the ship that was struck was in a safe passage where we thought that we had cleared the mines from. The Iranians still decided to shoot a drone after it.
Is that why Rubio was there this weekend? He went and was meeting with the leaders of these various countries there.
Yeah, and they are just very concerned about leaving Iran in any kind of strengthened state. And this is how, unfortunately, things work in the Middle East. They try to pay off the Iranians. They think that by giving them that money, it'll go towards the Iranian people or helping the regime. But to your point, it'll likely go right back to Hezbollah, go to their proxies as they drain anything out of their treasury, then sends it overseas as part of their terrorist networks.
Just going back to what Edie was talking about in terms of the pattern that we've been seeing with these back and forth strikes. Brian, where do we go from here, especially given that the MOU is extremely fragile? It's flexible, but the whole purpose is not to have these strikes.
These strikes are going to continue. We are engaged in this game of diplomacy with a regime that has no interest in actually ending their nuclear program. They have no interest in stopping to embolden their terrorist proxies like Hezbollah. That's why they're putting Lebanon front and center with this, speaking on behalf of the Lebanese people, which they cannot do. This is who they've always been, Krisha. So they're just buying more time, trying to create more runway here, get their hands on a couple more billions. But this thing is only going to end. I said this over the weekend. I think I was on with you. This thing's only going to end with the IRGC in body bags. Right. Enough is enough. We are shaming our country, to be frank with you, that we continue to sit at the table with these terrorists over and over and over again. They look at us, they lie, they launch missiles, they launch drones. Enough is enough with these people. When are we going to learn?
Mike, do you disagree?
Yeah, I think Brian's spot on. You've seen in the month of June 3 times as many cyber attacks against Israel that took place coming from Iran. So their capability transcends even just the battlefield. They're what's ever left of their lack of scale on the military side. But from their MOU's perspective, they have no intent. I think he's exactly right. They have no intent of complying with anything we want to do. And unfortunately, from a military perspective, what we had in operational gains back with Epic Fury, it doesn't seem to have made any impact on this regime.
Mike Lyons, Brian Lieb, thank you very much for being with us.